Okay, I think we can get started. So welcome everyone to another installment of webinars for busy lawyers, strategies for streamlining legal client files. And we're excited to have you join us for today's webinar presented by Laura Keeler, Law Practice Technology Specialist at LCL. My name is Amy Levine, the Director of Programs and Volunteers at Lawyers Concern for Lawyers, and I will be your host today. And I'm going to introduce Laura momentarily. If you're joining us for the first time, Lawyers Concern for Lawyers offers one-on-one consultations with licensed clinicians on mental health, substance use disorders, and well-being. Additionally, we provide educational programming, support groups, and one-on-one consultations in law practice management for the Massachusetts legal community. And as a reminder, our services are confidential and free. I am now honored to present our speaker. Laura brings a wealth of experience to this discussion. A graduate of Middlebury College, she has worked at the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and as a paralegal in private law firms. She also serves on the board of directors for the Paralegal Association of New Hampshire. In addition to her hands-on experience, Laura is a frequent writer and speaker on legal technology and law practice management. She's contributed to respected platforms such as the ABA Tech Show and Law Practice Magazine, where her most recent article, All Things Leadership and AI Roundtable, was just published. For more details on Laura's background and expertise, I encourage you to check out her full bio on our website. Additionally, we love and encourage questions, so Laura will answer those at the end of our presentation. So please use either the chat or the Q&A functions. And now let's get started. And without further ado, here is Laura.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm glad to be here. This is such an important topic. It isn't really looked at often until there's a problem, but streamlining legal client file management gives you many benefits. As Amy mentioned, I've worked in a number of legal environments, from USDOJ to law firms. Just as a note, I have seen the full gamut of case file disarray. I've been brought in on a number of cases and trials right before they went to trial because the case files were just unmanageable. And so I just wanted to say, you showing up today is a great first step. Wherever you are in this process, you are making a great step to be here. I know it is hard sometimes to get your case file management all in line in your practice. And so how we're going to organize today's conversation, because everyone is coming in at different points, is we're going to start from the overarching talking about the importance of organizing legal case files, then stages of law firms and practices going paperless, and then we'll get into more specifics as we go along for more efficiency. I want to note at the bottom of each slide, we'll have some best practices as noted for that. You will receive a recording of this and a copy of the slides. I'll also send out some other information for supplements, such as supplemental information on naming conventions, another webinar we have specifically on firms going paperless. And but if you have any questions after this, in addition to the Q&A at the end, we have consults, so you can have a free consult with someone like myself, and we can go over in particular the details of the struggles and pain points for your practice. All that said, let's get into the importance of why we want to organize legal client files efficiently. So time spent searching for files, it's lost billable time. It also adds a great deal of stress. From the latest Clio Trends report, we also know that although lawyers work so hard, you only bill for a fraction of that time. And I have seen working with many lawyers that often the reason is in part because case files are disorganized. You can't find what you're looking for, whether it's something in that specific client matter itself, or you're looking for a past familiar template. It really adds to the stress, the waste of time, and a lot of inefficiency. So our goal is that we want to make client files easier to find, access, and manage. And so, how are we going to do that? Well, to start with, again, realizing everyone is at a different stage in this process, and also no judgment for wherever stage you're at. We want to meet lawyers right where they are. You want to start with small, manageable improvements. So, if you haven't done anything yet, choose one area that you're going to first standardize. You want to set some firm-wide rules. Where are case documents going to go? How are they going to be stored? How are they going to be named? And then you want to make sure that everybody in the legal practice is following the same organizational system, because oftentimes people are on different pages, and that can make it harder if you have some people that are using iManage, some people are using the cloud, such as SharePoint, and you have others that are using it on the local drives. Then you don't have it everything in the same spot. And we really want to have these case files centralized on the cloud so that everybody has access to them easily. So let's talk about some common challenges and pain points. Well, as mentioned first, no standard system is the most common thing I see with law practices, is that oftentimes each attorney or each practice area will save files differently. And this makes it difficult because when you have the files scattered across desktops or shared drives or emails, it's very hard to have the case file all together, easy to access. So, what are some things you can do? Well, first, to combat inconsistent file names, you want to have firm-wide policy with where it's going to go and how things are going to be named. And we'll talk a little bit about naming conventions earlier. You want to separate your active and closed files. This particularly helps when you're going to wind down your practice if you have these already not commingled. You want to require the client documents are saved to the proper matter file immediately. And part of this is that when you have an original document that you receive, you don't want to keep that original from the client. And we're going to talk later on about best practices tips for intake too and closed files. But if you have an original document, you want to save it. You want to return the original to the client because you want to have your digital case file is the whole complete file, soup to nuts altogether. As noted, law practices are going to be at different stages of going paperless and streamlining their client files. So we're going to talk about these for the next couple slides as in stages. So the first one is to recognize if you have a problem. This may appear as files being hard to find, you have inconsistent naming, so you're not sure how to search for things, scattered storage. L&O in law firms, this is particularly difficult when you have some files are digitized and some in paper, because then it's hard to know if you have everything in the digital file, if you have some of the most important only in paper, if you have multiple people working on the case. Things can get lost and scattered all too easily. So, how do you combat that? For the next stage, you want to implement some digital systems. So, if you're at the point where your practice has some files are digital, but some are paper, but maybe you have some resistance to change, a good place to start is to set rules for about what gets scanned. I will note everything should get scanned, but if you're at this stage where you're just starting to implement digital systems, you want to start with the pain processes of where are your major points. So, for example, all the mail that comes in, all of the correspondence from clients, you want to make sure that it's stored electronically. Better yet, we're going to talk about efficient means for communicating electronically with your clients so that can be integrated right into the case file from the start. The next phase is that you want to establish firm-wide standards. You want to make sure that not only are your files digital, but that they have more systemization. So you can do that by standardizing your folder structures, um, and naming conventions and so forth. And then we can get into optimizing and automating. So Depending on these stages, wherever you may be, um, whether your firm is more scattered and disorganized, part and paper, part digital, mostly digital or fully digital, these are some best practices to build on what we talked about in the last slide of where you can start for where you're at. So for example, if you're just getting started, you want to establish basic client and matter folder structure. Once you've done that, you want to make sure that your digital structure mirrors your paper files. If you are mostly digital, you want to use document management tools for improved categorization. And then as you go along, you can add in some automation tools for faster document retrieval. Naming conventions, this will depend on what sort of system you're using. If you are using a law practice management system or a document management system, this will be a bit easier because they often have templates built within them. If you are at the stage for your practice where you are doing things more in a SharePoint or a OneDrive or something like that, a basic cloud storage that is not geared for legal files, these are some examples to start out. If you do the year, month, date, that helps because then if you're searching in chronological order, it will all be together chronologically. You have the client name, document type, brief description. This is where common abbreviations will help, not only to standardize the name of the files, but if you're searching for something, for example, MOT is very common for motion, and it helps to include the dates to track document versions easily. I will also note you want to have some sort of system for denoting the final document. For many firms, what they'll do is they will PDF the final. And so, for example, 25 Smith pleading, motion to dismiss, that is much better than just saying Smith final or something which is more vague in the title. Something that I have seen over and over is that client correspondence tends to get separated from the case file. They often, attorneys will often communicate with their clients via email, and then the emails will get buried in inboxes. It makes the retrieval difficult. It also makes it difficult to stay on the exact status of your client's case. So what do you do for this? You want to have the client correspondence saved directly into the matter folder. If you're using a case management system, like a law practice management system, a document management system, or so forth, these are organized in a matter-centric manner, so that's going to make it easier for you. For best practices, if you are right now still having your client correspondence in the case file, well, first, you can use some email integration tools. You can auto save case emails to the case file. For example, there are various integrations that can integrate with Clio and different matters depending on what you have. Some of this is very system specific, and we can talk more in consults if you have questions about, here's where I'm at, how do I fix this? You want to require that attorneys and everyone on the case move the key emails into the case file immediately. And a better way to prevent this from happening is to use the client portal for secure messaging instead of relying on emails. Why is this helpful? Well, client portals, they are built for communicating with clients. They are secure, they are encrypted, they are built for document sharing. This reduces the reliance on emails and prevents lost messages. And most importantly, it keeps the client communications and documents in one secure, centralized location. So best practices for getting this started. I would note when you train your clients when they come in about what documents will be shared via the portal, upload those key case documents for your clients, the contracts, the pleadings, the invoices, the hearings, and so forth promptly, and then let them know that that is the best way to respond with you. It allows them to see the key documents that you have added for the client access. It also gets things out of your email from the start and into the client portal, which is connected to the client matter in these matter-centric systems. So we talked a little bit about different platforms. Most law firms now are using law practice management systems, which is a field category, or document management systems. There are a variety of ones in the field. Some example names you may have heard of include Clio, MyCase, Smokeball, Practice Panther for law practice management systems. And then for document management systems, which are those more robust tools for intensive document versioning and so forth. We have tools like Set Builder. Those include systems like NetDocuments and iManage. And so these are helpful because they are created to really streamline legal files by matter, to have everything that matter centric so that your notes, your client files, your communications, etc., they're all connected in the same place. So this has many benefits. It helps you with faster search and retrieval. Part of this is that if your client calls and they want to know the status of something, you want to be able to go into the case file and ideally within about 30 seconds, see right off your last communications with the client. What is next? What are the next steps? And so if you have everything centralized, this is so much easier to do. You can aid this with automating your document organization and naming, creating more templates and more standardizations. I will note that if you have a law firm and you have a law practice management system or a document management system, but it isn't working, sometimes this can be because attorneys who are maybe a little bit more change resistant are saving the files on their local hard drives rather than the cloud-based system, which is where you want everything to be to have everyone to have easy access. If you want to make it easier, if you have very robust collections, for example, some of my cases, we had tens of thousands of documents that would come in for production. This is where tags and metadata really help you with improved searchability. And then part of this is that you're going to want to train your attorneys and your staff on proper uploading and retrieval for these to make it easier to have these firm-wide systems. So we're going to talk about some of the stages where law firms will run into some trouble with organizing their case files. So the first part is when you are opening a legal client file. So, some tips are that you want to create that standardized digital, and if you're still in the process of using physical files right now, physical file folder structure right upon intake. You want the digital and the physical file as you're using it to mirror each other, but really go as much digital as you can. And the folder structure, you want to have it consistent across practice type so that you know, okay, within the client file, I'm going to have, a section for notes and for client communications and for contacts and for everything, so forth. Part of to opening the client file is that you want to ensure that all of the required documents are included. Somewhere I've seen attorneys will run into some struggles are they'll have the fee agreement signed, but they won't have the retainer yet from the client. They'll start to do the case and then think, oh, wait a minute, should I be working on this? If you have some checklists to make sure that you have everything before getting started on the case, it's so much easier to then tell the client, yes, thanks, I still need these documents or I still need the retainer from you, and so forth. So, what helps with this? Intake checklists, automating client email folders within the case file, and then using templates for not only specific documents, but for folder structure. And these often, if you're using a law practice management system, you can set up a whole folder structure and subfolder structure within each one. So that way, if you're creating a new matter, this helps because rather than adding in all the different subfolders, you can pull up the template you created and then populate it for your next new case. When you're going to close a legal client file, this is another problem where a lot of law practices will run into struggles. Well, first, you want to make sure that the case documents are properly organized. You want to make sure that you don't have originals. You want to make sure that you have this in line with your document retention policy. You want to make sure that you finalize your billing, you've sent out the closing statements, declination letter, is a withdrawal letter is a great best practice. And then you want to archive your closed systems, closed files. It is so much harder when at the end of career, as you're going to wind down your practice, if you have not separated your closed files and your active files. Also, going by the document retention rules, depending on how long you need to keep the different documents, you can at some point, shred and eliminate those closed files. If you still have them connected with your active files and not in a separate place, it's going to be a lot harder to manage. I've worked with attorneys who have had storage boxes, in bank vaults, in closed file storage in multiple places. Sometimes they have multiple hundred boxes and they don't know what's closed, what's open. They haven't gone through to make sure that they have separated out and returned the originals to clients. And it is so much harder for them at the end. So if you create these systems as you're going along, it will make things easier for you as you go forward with your career. Some best practices are that you want to lock the editing on closed files. You want to make sure that everything is saved in. If you're at the state where right now your files for your law firm are mostly paper and you just feel overwhelmed, what you can do as a first start is if you just want to save all the case related files in a folder, you can, sub section them out if you want, but if you want to separate out the financial records from the case files just by the folder type, to have it in some sort of digital format will get you further along than having your boxes all over your basement or your living room or wherever you're keeping them, so forth. And then for best practices, you really want to encrypt and back up these archived digital files for better security. AI is improving the legal landscape in so many ways for day-to-day operations. And one of the ways that's really exciting is it's going to be improving some back office assistance, such as helping with streamlining legal client file management. So the benefits are that you can automate the document categorization and tagging. This can improve the search capabilities. You don't have to have computer programmer knowledge or Boolean searching. You can have just natural language processing, asking regular questions to help pull up documents within your case files. And some of them can also give you alerts for when key documents are missing or help you with automating asking the clients at intake for certain key documents to make sure that you have them for that case type. So this is going to have a lot of benefits. With these AI-powered searches, you're going to have faster retrieval. If you regularly audit the categorization, you're going to improve the accuracy. But I will note that there are some cautions. For example, unless you're using a closed system, you don't want to input anything confidential about your case files into an open system. So if you are unsure, if you're using like a regular chat GPT, don't put anything personally identifiable about the client into tools like that. But if you're using a legal specific AI tool like a Vincent VLEX or a Casetext Co-Counsel, which was acquired by Thomson Reuters, or Clio Duo, anything like that, those are geared for legal, such that the vendors do not have access to your case files. They have retrieval augmented generation, and they're closed so that they cannot train on your data. And so those are safe to have your client files within. As we're thinking about how this is going to benefit your practice long term, this is going to set you up for success. Not only, and you're going to have less time looking for documents, you're going to have less stress, you're going to not have all of those hours wasted trying to condense the systems or trying to think, okay, where are my active files? Where are my closed files? As you standardize and create some file management policies and add in file retention clauses to things like your fee agreements, this is going to make your life so much easier. Likewise, as you use more tech, whether it's automation tools to reduce manual file handling, whether you're just starting out and you're going to OCR so that way you can have the client file searchable, whatever stage you're at, there are different tech tools to help with this. And again, this is really going to streamline your practice and reduce that manual file handling and make it easier for organization and retrieval. You want to archive your closed matters promptly. And then again, you want to train your attorneys and staff on these best practices. And anytime you have a new person come into the firm, you want to make sure too that they're trained so they know, okay, this is how we handle all documents. This is where they go. This is the naming conventions for how they're named. This is how it goes when we're opening a case, when we're closing a case, and so forth, making sure that everything is digitized, that they're all saved on that cloud-based, uh, matter-centric system. So everyone has access to the same documents, that you have the case file in one place will help you. And why is this so important ultimately in helping with your long-term success? Well, if you use systems like these, this will ensure the accuracy and completeness of your case files. And so not only is that part of your professional responsibility, but also makes it so much easier for your practice to run efficiently. How do you do that? So this is when you're at the later process of going more paperless. You want to save all client files immediately and digitally, every document, all notes, appointments, and hearings. You don't want to just have them in your written notebook. You really want to have that in your electronic calendar, which should be synced with your case file. You want to know upcoming tasks, what's completed. For some systems, they will allow two task lists to be reviewed by one person and checked off by another. You also want to know all deadlines, including statute of limitations. If you have people within your firm or practice who are still very much into handwriting, and there's certainly benefits for handwriting for memory retention, you still want to have those notes scanned. This is where there are some tools such as digital notebooks like Rocketbook, where people, if they're going to be handwriting out notes in the meeting, you can have those QR boxes in the bottom corner to save them into a set of system folders. And that way you're making sure that all of the notes, everything related to the client case file is saved in that complete, accurate, centralized case file. So, what are some of the benefits of having the accuracy and completeness of the case files? Well, it adds to efficiency. And part of this efficiency is that you have ready accessibility to these documents so that's easier to retrieve data, to manage tasks, record time for billing. And this goes back to too that you are going to be able to bill more hours, have more of your time on substantive work and not looking for gathering, wrangling your case files. If you use tools such as the encrypted client portals, this is going to be easier for sharing your information with your clients and keeping it organized. And depending on what stage you're at within this spectrum of going paperless, there are a lot of tools to help you streamline and automate your workflows. So with that, I will take questions here. As noted too, if you want to do a one-on-one consultation later and say, okay, for my particular firm, this is my practice area, these are all challenges, happy to do that as well. And again, these are free and confidential for the Massachusetts legal community. Amy, I'll turn it over for you for moderating the questions.
Yes, Laura, once again, an amazing presentation, just chock full of information. So absolutely wonderful. And again, what I'm taking away personally from this presentation, again, it's about time saving efficiency and allows you to do more of the actual lawyering work. One of the things I also wanted to point out is that sometimes there's more time spent upfront to get these things up and running. However, if you look at it in the bigger picture, it will save you time and the ability to access what you need quickly. So, with that said, we do have some questions. The one person asked, "How much is a client portal?"
Oh, so client portals are usually included within your law practice management systems. Those are like your Clios, your My Cases, and so forth. It depends on what tier you get for a product, but I would say typically for a mid-range around $80 or $100 per user per month. And that includes a lot of features, including the client portal, including some document automation, case file storage, document management storage, a whole range of features to help you with time tracking and billing and invoices. And often they're adding on payments for free. So the client portal is now considered a added premium feature within a lot of these systems, but it's usually included if you have something that is more robust, like a Net Documents or an iManage. It depends. Those pricing is often available on request, but I do know from firms that Net Documents can be quite pricey, probably more in the range of a few $100s per month.
Excellent. We have somebody else who said, "It seems that everything is geared towards firms with case management systems. So small firms, solo firms often do not use these systems, and they're costly for a small firm." What what's your response to that?
Well, I am one of the vice chairs of the Massachusetts Bar Association Solo and Small Firm Section Council. So I'm very familiar with the struggles of solos and small firms. You have a lot of pressures put upon you. I will note that while some of these tools started out for more mid-sized firms, they have really, in the past few years, expanded more into the small firm space. Also, the time savings that you are going to have from these, particularly if you're one of those people that you don't have a lot of support staff, this is going to free you up to do more of the lawyering. As Amy mentioned, it is a time investment to get these products started, to get these systems going, to get everything trained on. But I would say this is a huge advantage actually for solos and small firms to use some tools like this. It is a tremendous return on investment for efficiency if you can use some of these. If you're worried about budget, certainly come talk to me. There are systems too that you can get for like $50 a month. There are even some that are around $25 a month, although those tend to be so limited with features that they are not as helpful. It all depends on what your practice area is. I would say schedule a consult and we can find a tool that works for you, that fits within your budget. But yes, these are definitely a help for solos and small firms too, not just medium or large firms anymore.
Excellent. And person actually has a follow-up. Are there ways to organize without a case management system?
You can. It's more difficult, but you can. So if you are going to be not using a case management system, some of those people will try to use Microsoft Outlook 365 to organizing their files. For example, they might use a SharePoint or a OneDrive folder. I will note that because these are not set up for file storage for lawyers, it's going to be a lot harder. You're going to be more intentional about making sure that you have that consistent folder structure with the client, for example, the client name, and then the subfolders of, let's say, your discovery, your correspondence, your pleadings, and so forth. It's also going to be harder for you to track version control if you're using a generic system like your Microsoft 365. Part of the challenge is too is that If you're using like a OneDrive folder, you need to make sure everyone on the team has permissions for it, because that is usually geared by default that only the person whose OneDrive folder it is will have access permissions. So that makes it harder for the team to share documents back and forth. So you can do it to a degree, but it is so much harder than using those systems which are geared for legal, which are geared for case management, which are geared for law practice management, for document management systems, and so forth, because they're really just set up with the templates, the structure, so that you don't have to time by time do your folders and your subfolders. I'll also note if you're doing it on your own, um, this is from a colleague in Arizona who does similar work, but ran into some trouble with someone she was helping. They were using a system like Box or Dropbox for their client files. They weren't well trained on how to use it. They ended up having all of their client files in the same folder. Everyone had permissions for it. And as part of it, they inadvertently disclosed some case files for one client file to other clients. They also were not separating out their active files from each other and from the closed files. So they got into disciplinary trouble. And it also created a lot of headaches for the firm. So again, this does take some time and money and setup, but it's going to save you in the in the long run with just streamlining and having fewer headaches, and more efficiency.
Excellent, excellent. We do have another question. In terms of ballparking how much cloud storage space and the cost estimation, I know you've talked about that, but just in terms of the cloud storage space, this person says, for example, solo practice uh, for many years starting this process, LPMS has limits.
Okay. Yes. So file storage, it's going to depend in part on your practice area. Um, I know when I was at the DOJ, we had individual case files that would have multiple terabytes of data within them. That was quite unusual though, because for some of those, we would have like 30 case subjects on one investigation. I would say for most solo practice areas, if you have somewhere between 2 to 5 terabytes will probably be fine for you. If you're someone with whose case files are not as intensive. For example, if you have personal injury, you're going to have a lot of more file storage and database, in which case there are some systems, legal systems geared for personal injury, and those more robust systems like that, like a file vine, a case peer, and so forth. Um, if you're doing like estate planning and it's more just your wills, your trusts, your power of attorney, for that, you might have under a terabyte of data. It really all depends on your practice area. Um, I'm happy to talk with you in a consult later to also you can screen share, you can show into your system and we can look at what you have. Again, this is all confidential. So that's an option too. But I would say in general for solo small firm, probably, around 1 to 5 terabytes of data, depending on your practice area.
Excellent. And how do you rate Lawmatics? Do you
Oh,
have an opinion on that?
so Lawmatics is a CRM that helps with client intake and organization. Um, I like them as a product. I have demoed them. I was doing a lot of research for a CLE at TechShow last year on different ways to help with client intake processes and streamlining it. Um, I think that it's a good tool. I will note too that there is no one best tool. I would really say it's what is going to work for your firm because there are different systems that you will already have on board that you want to make sure are integrated with. You want to make sure that the system is not too complicated for the users of your firm. Some of them are more designed to be out of the box. Some of them are more designed that it's very customized and you might need a consultant to help you set it up. But in general, I like Lawmatics as a product. I think that they have some great features.
Excellent. And then also, I just wanted to mention you talked a little bit about some people do prefer handwriting notes. I
Yep.
am probably one of those people. I've used Kindle. They have a version where you can take your notes and you can save those documents. And then it also has an AI feature where it can summarize your notes. Any thoughts about that? Have you heard much about that Kindle option?
I have not heard of law firms using Kindle. There are more places that are helping you summarize your notes. A few thoughts on that. So if you're using, any sort of tablet, Kindle, an iPad, or so forth, when you save your notes, you want to make sure that they go into that standard client file. If you're using the AI summary features, you want to make sure that it is not training on your data. And part of that, they call it different things on different systems. But if you go into settings, you can toggle off, they'll call it like, train on my data. Sometimes they're now trying to make it more appealing to keep it on by like, you know, help me improve the product or so forth. You want to toggle those off so that the system is not using your data, your documents, your prompts to train their model for future. Just in that way, it helps with more confidentiality.
That's excellent. Excellent. Good to know. So somebody also mentioned, so we're talking about AI automation.
Mhm.
How about AI this is a very different topic, AI to do legal drafting like complaints or pleadings, and which AI tools are good for doing this task for small firms or like ChatGPT, Copilot, which are the best? Um, and are they not too confidential, even though it's a paid version? Any thoughts on that? I know we're going a little off topic there, but we also know that you are an AI expert. Any comments there?
So I have so much I want to say. If I knew more about the details, it would help. There are a lot of AI tools that are improving. All of them are improving at an exponential rate of change. So week by week, they're getting better and better. There was a study that came out, I think, about a week and a half ago from law professors, including one at Michigan, who headed the study, talking about the empirical benefits of lawyers using AI. This was headed by Dan Schwartz. And so, depending on the task, you could get between 30 to 140% a productivity boost with using AI tools. As for which ones are best and which ones are best for different sizes, it all depends. There was a Val study out recently which did some benchmarking. I will note that the tools had to self-submit what features they wanted to be graded on. So most of the ones in that study are more geared for the medium and larger size firms because they're tools owned by systems like Thomson Reuters, LexisNexis. Um, if you're a smaller firm, I would say a place to start that would be affordable for you would be something like a clear brief. That is a closed system. It's retrieval augmented generation. They don't train on your data. It's geared for lawyers. It will help you with systematizing the formatting of so you don't have to go back and use the blue book. It can help you with as you're researching something and then to add a pin site and some links to what you're looking at. It can help you with quotes. Something like that I would say is great for a small firm. I think last I looked, it was around $50 a month per user, so pretty affordable. But if I knew more specifics of exactly what this person wanted, then it would help. Because, for example, last time I looked at AI deposition tools, um, a year ago we had none. And then last I looked, we had about a dozen that can do everything with helping you with come up with questions for deposition, do some real-time verification. Some will say that they act like a second chair, all different levels.
So maybe we should advise this person to reach out for a one-on-one consult. That might be more helpful.
Yes,
Um,
I think that's great.
Excellent. And then the person who had asked about Lawmatics does have another follow-up question. So this person said that most of their clients' documents are saved in SharePoint.
Okay.
And are they not using Lawmatics then to its full potential?
This would be one too, where it would be easier if we could do an individual consult and if they could share their screen so I could see what they're using Lawmatics for, what they're using SharePoint for. Are a lot of firms that still use SharePoint. There are some integrations between it and Lawmatics. I would want to see what their structure is for where they keep certain case files, um, to know if they're really using Lawmatics effectively, or if not, I could give them some tips on starting points and what features to train on next, for better use.
Okay. That's great. I am seeing a lot of the questions now are going towards the AI world, which again we know is a hot topic. And just to let people know that Laura did a full series on AI, so I encourage everybody to go to our website, go to our digital library, and you will see the full series. I believe we had 4 parts to it,
Mhm.
including Lou's, one of our advisors who's an attorney who did a piece on ethics. So again, we have somebody who said that they had a small government legal office that is primarily in-house with some litigation. So this person is less concerned with billing and invoicing,
Okay.
and they're more concerned about knowledge management, finding that answer we gave to a similar question a few years ago. So, again, streamlining some time. What would be a good LPMS system we should look for?
Ooh. Okay, so part of this is that you're going to need to do some work with finding those past documents to tag them or systematize them in some way to note what is a good document for what. Um, there are some like FileVine that if you're looking for example like standard contract phrases, it can come up with them. There are others, um, depending on how specific your litigation type is, you really may need to input some of your past documents, and in which case it would involve finding them, pulling them up. There are some specific Gen I tools for example, firms that do very niche work, like criminal immigration or sub-branches of construction law or different things where you can create an LLM, inputting all of your past cased files, and then you can query it within. I would say how much work you need to do depends on the type of example document you're looking at. For example, are you looking for past, plea agreements, how those were structured, or you're looking at past motions, which may be more standard. But part of it is if you are looking for something that's more particular for your practice area and you don't think the LLM would have similar examples to, for example, if you're doing like estate planning, it's easy to get some example wills and trusts and such. You can even download, some wills from probate offices. And then I've known an attorney who queried like the 50 wills she pulled and then said, what are the most common clauses. So a lot of that, as with so many things in legal, it depends. And that's another one too. I would suggest a consult so we could look at what are the sorts of documents that you're often searching for that you would want to pull a template from? And then how much work do you need to do? Because depending on it, you might want a law practice management system tool, you might want an LLM. Um, it just really depends.
And it does seem like, again, a lot of these are specific questions. So if people are interested in that consult, I'll just remind you to go to our website. And then there is a section for scheduling an appointment. You can schedule with either a clinician for different issues, and then certainly under the low map side as well. Um, Again, we're veering into AI, and somebody does ask if AI can assist in intake, and is there a specific AI tool for that?
Yes. So rather than generative AI, there are some predictive AIs that can help with intake right now. Um, there are also a lot of the lab practice management systems are adding out intake features. So, for example, my case recently added in a online digital form that can help with intake. It's built with conditional logic, so it's a dynamic form. Depending on what the clients put in for information, it will pull up different sub questions. Some people will use for helping with intake CRMs, which you can think of. They're typically called customer relationship management. For legal, you can.
Oh, oh, we lost Laura. So if people hold on, I'm going to see if we can try to get her back. This just gives us a reminder that technology is great until it isn't. Um, Again, in the meantime, while we're trying to get her back, I would encourage folks to either go to our digital library and check out some additional AI tools or presentations, articles that Laura has done, and also schedule an individual appointment. Laura, you're back. We're so happy to see you. And as I just said to the group, that technology is great until it isn't, but
Yes.
as your usual, you were able to figure it out. Um, so I think you were still in the process of answering a question regarding the
Oh, yes.
AI tools.
So for intake, as noted, there are some law practice management tools, which my case have recently added features. There are some like Clio, which is working on Clio questionnaires. My understanding is that's still in product development at the time, looking to be rolled out sometime 2025, which that will help with intake. You can use our CRM. CRMs include like Lexmato, which became Clio Grow, Lawmatics, and others. Um, if you are doing like a personal injury or workers' comp, Filevine has some great AI assisted intake tools. It depends in part on your practice area, but this is something that a lot of firms recognize are a common challenge for firms. And so they're trying to work on adding improved features for intake.
Excellent. Somebody says, "Welcome back, Laura." I
Thank
think we all second third that. Thank you for going over this person's previous question. This person is not in Massachusetts, so unsure if they qualify for consultation. The purpose for AI legal tech is for doing pleading complaint for Section 1983 RICO FCA, False Claims Act, Tom Bain Act in California, Supreme Court, and Superior Court. So my first question would be, you are eligible for a consult with Laura or somebody else in our organization if you live in Massachusetts, work in Massachusetts, or go to law school in Massachusetts. So there are some options, and we have some breathing room and some leeway. I'm just not quite sure if this person is in California if they work there and they live there. And so, unfortunately, I think that that might put a little bit of this person is in Pennsylvania. So, for this person, are you live in Pennsylvania and you work in Pennsylvania, is my guess. So, unfortunately, and we always do not like to say no, but unfortunately, due to our funding and how things are arranged, we do contain it to the Massachusetts legal community.
I will note for that person, email me. I have some contacts in Pennsylvania. One of them works on Pennsylvania ethics opinions. One of them does practice management in Pennsylvania. Happy to put you in touch with them. And I also know of a firm that does legal tech consulting that's based in Pennsylvania. So even if you are not licensed in Mass, happy to point you to resources as I can.
Excellent. And also, just as a reminder, every state does have their own law assistance program. Some or most probably do not have the robust features that we have and offerings that we have, but please certainly reach out to your state's LAP program and see what type of services they offer, and or they can refer you to additional services, as Laura can potentially do that. So this person in response says, fantastic, and thank you.
I just want to note on that too.
Yeah.
We have a lot of attorneys in Massachusetts who are cross-barred, who they may live in like a Connecticut or New York or Pennsylvania or so forth. If you live and have your main practice in those other states, but if you're still licensed in Massachusetts as well, as a lot of people, keep up their dual trial licenses, that counts too. If you're part of the Massachusetts bar anyway, part of what the Massachusetts Lawyer Assistance Program is here for you. So if you have your Mass license, but you primarily live and work in another state, that's okay too.
Okay, great. And the person is asking for the link to the AI series in the LOMAP library. So it's not specifically the LOMAP library, but what I would do, and I can certainly do this later, but if you go to our website, click on the digital library, which is at the top right-hand corner, and there is a search bar, so you can put in AI, and Laura's series is going to come up, as well as a number of different articles and other presentations that we've done. So please feel free to use that. And I would also encourage people to go to our digital library regardless, because you never know what else you're going to encounter there and find out some really great additional information. So I encourage everybody to visit our digital library and see what might suit your fancy.
Two additional notes on that.
Yes.
Before this recording is sent out, I can connect with Rachel and include some supplemental resources, including link to the AI series, link to a practice management consult, link to other client file organization tips, to have that as part of the email for when you receive the recording. It might delay the when you get the recording a little bit to the end of the week, but we can certainly add those on for ease of reference. Also, if you are ever looking for something in our digital library, I note too that the person was asking about LOMAP. So there are still a number of people who are confused. And I just want to help clarify, because this is a question. So Mass LOMAP is what the LCL Law Practice Management Services used to be called for a long while. This is how it was known. We had the masslomap.org website. This was combined with the LCLMA website when we were trying to have the branding for the practice management more under the LCL umbrella. So for people that are used to the masslomap.org website and then they're trying to find it, it is now part of the LCL digital library. As Amy notes, there are categorization tags in there. I'll also note, again, this is something where if you are looking for something that used to be on our website, or you're thinking, I have a question about this, email me. and or schedule practice management intake, happy to go through and find some resources for you, whether on our website or otherwise, to point you to.
I think, Laura, thank you for pointing that out. Our website, just so people know, lclma.org. And again, yes, so that is important for people to know. Perhaps they knew about us from years ago, and it is now combined under one umbrella. So again, great point. So it looks like we are at the 1 o'clock mark, and I think we have answered everybody's questions. But we thank you, Laura, for such a thorough presentation. Again, as always, just amazing what you can bring to the table. Thank you all for joining us today, and you will receive a feedback form. We'd love for you to fill that out. Any feedback is helpful, future topics, things like that. We certainly appreciate that and are always looking to improve. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and keep an eye out for our next webinar for busy lawyers, which is Jedi Mind Tricks, and that is with Dr. Sean Healy.
On April 9th.
April 9th. Thank you. All right. Have a great day. Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. And again, if you have more individual questions, schedule that follow-up consult. Happy to go over things with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.